Okay, folks, we are back to for another Word of Torah with Moshe Avrams and me, Rod Bryant. We're having a great time doing this class. It's funny, you and I don't get to sit and have these conversations because we're busy, we're working. And then when we do have these conversations, I've got to rein myself in because as you are, presenting and lecturing on the Hebrew, just so many things are flying through my head from other studies and understanding concepts of spirituality and creation. It's like it's an exercise of my free will to keep the old gob shut while you're talking. So if I go too much, just say, "Hey, Rod, let's get back on track." Okay, just do that.
No, I'm right there with you. This is the stuff that gets me really excited.
Well, we're
Is
excited to
this
have everybody to join us, and I'm glad you're sharing these things and sharing them with other people. Uh, Moshe also has regular classes that he teaches. So if you are interested in taking the classes, by all means, avail yourself of the opportunity. You won't regret it at all. Okay, Moshe, I'm going to hand it over to you. It's yours.
beautiful? This is so fantastic. This is where we left off last time. Was
Correct.
with the phrase "Vayome Elohim," and God said, "Yehi or, there will be light. Vayehi or, and there was light." And we talked last time about how the idea that you have this word Yehi will be, and then this vav can do two different jobs.
Right.
It can be an and, or in this case, it's a tense flipper. It flips the word from future tense into past tense, and it can do it the other way as well. So actually, a lot of those extra letters have a couple of different jobs.
Right.
So the word lamed, for example, the letter lamed, if you put it on the beginning of a word, if it's extra, it can mean to or for, and the letter bet can mean in or with. So what we always start with Hebrew is a three-letter verb root, and then we start adding, like Lego style, start adding on letters before and after and sticking them in the middle, and it transforms the meaning of the word. So it's really cool because once you learn those rules, they apply to all the different words in the language, and it starts to reveal itself, which is really fun.
Moshe, here's one of the fundamental principles that I want our viewers to know is that the reason why you're going to learn so easily with this method is we're actually building onto this as we go. And after a while, you're going to recognize, oh, I recognize that. That is and was or that's masculine that's feminine. Like
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's just going to happen. And it
Uh,
works.
Absolutely, because this God wrote such a good book.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting story that you get carried away with the story and you don't notice that the grammar's going in there.
Right.
I have
Exactly.
I have a wonderful new student in Trinidad, and he was telling me that before learning Hebrew, he was learning Amharic, which is the most widely spoken language in Ethiopia, but it has like 200 letters. And I was like, "Don't worry, Hebrew's only got 22 letters,
Wow,
and
that's I mean, we're talking about the level of Chinese almost, right?
yeah, well, it's a syllabary. So instead of like with Hebrew, it's like truly phonetic language.
Right.
The letters make the sounds that they make, and it stays like that. Whereas
Oh.
with Amharic, you have like so the letter which sounds like a K can say ka ki ku ke like this. All the
Oh.
vowels have stuck onto it. So because of that, instead of having one K, you have to have like five different Ks.
Oh
So
my
it's like,
goodness.
so
Ah,
the point is, Hebrew is easier than that.
no doubt.
Hebrew won't mess with you in that way.
No doubt.
So, V'yom Elohim, God said, Yehi or, there will be light. V'yehi or, there was
It
light.
was like
Just as God said it was, that's how it was. So we kind of talked about that grammar. But
hmm
then God kind of reacts to that. There's this, reflexive assessment. Just to point out as well, I'm leaving this English translation at the bottom for now. We're going to get rid of it soon because we won't need it.
hmm
Because actually, as we go through, we start to go, well, that's not a very good translation, or that word doesn't really quite mean that. So I'm leaving it on for now as almost like our training wheels, as you say in America, on a bicycle, and then we're going to
Yes.
throw them away so I can go much faster without
Yes.
these. So we have this word up here. This is a verb, right?
Right.
The root of this verb is Reish Aleph Hey. Right? We've actually lost the Hey off the end because Hey is one of two weak letters. You can lose a nun from the beginning of a root or the Hey from the end of a root. But what we're left here is Ra, right? But the Aleph doesn't have a vowel on it.
Right.
So the question is, why leave the Aleph? If it doesn't have a vowel, it doesn't make a sound without a vowel.
Right.
Why leave it on there? And the idea is so that, when we learn our roots, we go, it's not making a sound, but I can see that that's the word ro'eh, which means to see, right?
Right.
So we're left, it's there, that makes it easier to read. But there's a vowel here under the vav, so this is va. This is a patach vowel, which is an ah sound. There's another one of those under the yod, so it's vaya, and then the resh, so vayar. That's the pirate verb.
Vayar, matey.
Exactly. So this means, and he saw. If it was Yeroeh, it would be he will see, but with the vav flipping it into the past tense, vayar means he saw, past tense, right? And who's seeing? Well, we have the word Elohim afterwards. So we see the verb and then who's doing the verb. Vayar Elohim. What's God seeing? Well, we have this word et. We don't have this in English. This is the object marker. So this points to what's being seen. That points to whatever the verb is doing to. And in this case, it's ha'or.
Ha'or. And we
now
said
last
that
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on. Tell us what it is.
Well, it's light. It's the
Absolutely.
light. Right.
Absolutely. So the last time it said or, and that was light.
Mm-hmm.
But if you add a hey on the beginning, the hey, one of the meanings of hey, the most common meaning of hey, means the. So it's Vayar Elohim et ha'or, and saw did God the light. Right? Vayar Elohim, God saw et ha'or, the light. And it says ki tov. Now that's an interesting phrase because ki can mean a couple of different things. It can mean because, but in this case it means thus. It's that kind of thing. Right? It mean verily, thus good. Tov is good. Just like, Mazel Tov means good luck. You say it in congratulations. You say Boker Tov means good morning. Yom Tov means good day. So Tov is good. Right? So God seeing the light and seeing is good. Now, that seems quite straightforward. We like light. Light is useful. But actually, by saying light is good, it's not so much telling you about the light. It's telling you about what God thinks is good. That's the thing we've got to watch out for. Because there's nothing to compare it to. You're like, it's good. Okay, what? Is it great? Is it better than something else? What is it? So we need to interrogate that a little bit, and we'll see in a minute what it means to say that the light is good. Okay, so for a moment, we'll just say light is good. Happy with that. And then we go into this new verb here. We have the root, bet, dalet, lamed. We have a yod to say he or it is doing it, so neutral. And then the vav to say it's flipped into the past tense, okay? So the word is pronounced vayavdale. Okay, now, Rod, what is Havdalah? Oh, sorry, you're muted. Sorry,
the utility workers are banging
the
concrete. I'm sure you probably can't hear it, but it's annoying. Havdalah. We do Havdalah every Saturday after Shabbat. It's a very special time. And why are we doing Havdalah?
We're marking the end of Shabbat. Right. So what we're doing is we've been in this very special time, and now we are separating from the time. Right. So Havdalah means the separation. So if we're trying to find the verb root under Havdalah, we have badal. Havdalah, vadal is the same word.
Yeah.
So vadal means to separate, right? And because we have a yod, we know he or it is doing it, and va, the tense flipping vav means he did it in the past. So v'yavdel Elohim means God separated.
Right.
God made a division or divided or separated or took apart two things. So what is it that God's separating? Well, it says here, by the way, I'm just changing the size of these things. It's the same verse I'm working through. We have the word bain, right?
Bain.
Bet yod nun, bain. This is nothing to do with Batman. This is bain means between in Hebrew. And the phrase here is bain ha'or uvein ha'choshek. Now, you may remember from last week, choshek is darkness.
Right.
You may remember from a minute ago when Rod told you, ha'or is the light. So God is separating between the light and between the darkness. You know what's cool about that? That means before God separated between the light and the darkness, they weren't separate.
Correct.
We said last week that what God's doing is introducing the laws of physics, and by introducing the laws, the rules, the limits of the physical world, God is causing the physical world to happen.
Correct.
So if God made light and then separated it into light and darkness, we can't imagine this because we've only ever seen light and darkness as being separate. But the reason they're separate is because God said they would be.
So in reality, are we saying that darkness is not the antithesis of light? It was a part of light. It's the same source.
Well,
It's just
now
been
it is.
separated. Yeah, no, of
Yeah.
course now it is. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
you make that great point. At
right,
that point, they weren't the antithesis.
right.
It was like almost like it was an object, it was a substance, it was a something.
Hmm.
And then God separated it into opposites. So God can make something and then divide it, and you can have two different things, right? And then they can't really mix because God said they're separate. He's
Right.
defined that rule, that boundary. So the cool thing is a minute ago, we started the sentence, V'ya Elohim et ha'or, and God saw the light. Ki tov. He saw that the light was good and then separated it into light and darkness, which means that when God said it was good, it included both light and darkness.
Both light and
Now,
dark.
this is a very Jewish idea,
Oh yes.
right? This is a very Torah idea because you might have other religions that say, well, there's God is in charge of all the light and good and positive, and then you have some other evil force, which is in
Deity.
charge.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's bitheism. That's
Right,
saying that
right.
there are these. But we say in Torah, we say Ein ad milvado. There is nothing else but God. Everything comes from God.
Correct.
Which means if God says it's good, even the things which, sometimes we're suffering with, at the time of recording, me and Rod, we're really suffering with something political that's going on in the world, and not just us, everybody.
Right.
And you can't. Sometimes you look at something so terrible, you can't imagine how any good can come out of it. And sometimes we can't make any good come out of a terrible thing. God can.
So
Everything
the
ultimately
question
comes
that's
from.
being asked, or the question that comes to mind here is, this still is not a. This is still not the Earth. This is still not planets.
Right.
We're talking about he is establishing spirituality and
Yes.
physics, which
Yes.
they're all the same thing. Okay. It's just you have scientists that use physics to describe these deep esoteric spiritual ideas, but they're
Yeah.
the same. It's being formed right here. You're being able to see that from this world of Hashem that he says, okay, here's physicality will be in the darkness. It's all good. Physicality will be here, and all of the other spiritual beings and light will be here. They don't interact. They're just together, but they don't interact. That's beautiful.
This is it. This is it. We take for granted these principles, but they're
Mhm.
not. They're only in place now because God put them in place. And like you say, science, really, all of science begins after the formation of the universe. There's no scientists before the formation of the universe.
No.
So all that scientists are doing are measuring the finite world. Every experiment that's ever been done is someone measuring something finite. When you look at the forces of gravity, that's a finite force on a finite object. If you're measuring light, you're measuring finite energy, and you're seeing its limits and you're seeing its rules. So really, all of science is observing what happens in the physical universe and going, therefore this.
Right.
So it's all observation, and there's plenty of innovation within that. How can we use this to put a man on the moon? All this wonderful stuff, right? But science has nothing to say about the infinite because you can't measure the infinite. You can't observe the infinite because everything we observe is by its limit. We measure the length of something. Well, that's where it stops, not where it is, right? So all of these rules that are part of the observation of physics and the physical universe are being introduced here in Torah. And from then everything becomes straightforward. You just get a ruler or a thermometer or a speed gun detector thing.
Right.
Whatever tool you use,
Right.
But here's where they come from. Here's where these rules come from. So now we have light separate. And like you say, that's not happening on a planet. We don't even have a planet so we just have light and darkness right now in this unformed void space, right? And then, and this is the next stage. So first God introduces something, then gives it rules, and then kara. And the root kara, kof resh aleph, this is it's just like the word call in English. Right? And call can mean a few different things. All the things that the word call can mean in English, kara means in Hebrew. So, they call me Moshe. My mum's calling me in for dinner, right? I call out the window to see who's listening. All of those, shouting, naming, summoning, all those different things. Kara applies to all of those things. So kara means to call. Yod tells us it's masculine or neutral is doing it, But when you put I'm always going to color them green. You have different letters to tell you who's doing something. Say if we put a taf, then it means she's doing it, right? If we put a nun, it means we're doing it. If we put an aleph, so we'll teach those as we go. But at the moment, we only have yods because it's neutral. But when you put one of those green letters on the front, obviously they're not green on the Torah. I've colored them green. But when you put one of these functions at the beginning, it means future tense. And then you can flip it back into the past tense with this tense flipping blue vav, right? I often call this the worried dolphin because it's a tense flipper. So Vayikra Elohim. So and he called, did God, so that we have the verb first and then who's doing it. Le'or. Now we know what or is.
Mm-hmm.
So it says down here in the English, and God called the light, right? What's the problem? How do you say the in Hebrew?
Right. Ha.
Ha. So it should be, if it said God called
the
light something, it should say the Ha'or.
Right.
The Yikra Elohim, Ha'or.
Ha'or.
Yom. And Yom is day. So God called the light day. Right. It doesn't say that. It says La'or. And Lamed, this blue Lamed here, as a prefix means 2 or 4. The cool thing about that is the Yikra Elohim La'or means God called to light. He's speaking to it. God is, right? Just like when God made light in the first place, said, Yehi or, it will be light, and then it was, right? So in the same way, God is addressing the actual universe, saying, you've got to exist now. This is your rules.
And then he goes, after he says this is, he separates, then he goes, day.
Right. Your day, that's what you are.
Right.
Those are your rules, right?
Right.
And of course, because everything in Hebrew has a verb root underneath it,
right?
When he names something, he's giving it its purpose, right? And we see this all the way through the Torah. Like, for example, Jacob, he's got a name. It's not a very flattering name. It either means to be crooked like a heel, or it can mean consequence. Ekev means consequence, depending on which ayin you use. So it has all these. He's struggling. He's exploring himself. He's trying to figure out who he is in the world, and then he refines his character to the point that God comes in and goes, "Ooh, you're someone I want to work with," and God changes his name. And if the name of something relates to its actual purpose, what God is doing when he renames you is he's giving you a new purpose.
Right.
And that's a cool thing. So God's coming in here to the or and saying, Yom, you've got a purpose. It's giving you rules and then giving you a purpose. And there's another
and we still don't have a moon, stars.
Right. So this isn't, when it says Yom, we're not talking about 24 hours that it takes a planet to rotate as compared to the sun. No. We're talking about God days. These are the underlying principles of day, right? We really don't know how long this is lasting. We also
have to understand that everything associated with day is in that. Right. Illumination, clarity, you give it. Anything that is illuminated by daylight in the physical world, it's also applicable in the spiritual and intellectual world. If it's good, it's day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all it is to it. Yeah.
Totally, because there's a principle that you're talking about here, which is if you want to understand the real meaning of a word, one of the things you do is you go and find its first instance in the Torah and say, what was the context? Okay, how does this compare to the other times it was used? Right. So you always want to find the earliest, and this is the earliest introduction of Yom. There's another cool thing which is happening, which I think we might have mentioned on the first lesson, which is the Yod Mem ending. Now, you know how the Vav can mean and, or it can be a tense flipper.
Right.
The Lamed can mean 2 or 4. There's lots of different things like this. And there's a couple of different things that Yod Mem can mean. Yod Mem can mean masculine or neutral plural. But clearly it doesn't when it's talking about Elohim.
Right.
Because God spends a great deal of time throughout the Torah saying, I am one, there is no other. Is there anyone who is like me? I know of none. I do not share my glory with anyone. He spends a weirdly long amount of time telling everybody he's singular. So why does it say Yod Mem on the end? Well, we have to look at some other things which have a Yod Mem ending. One of them is Mayim, water, right? Which flows, but it's not two waters. It's not 3 waters.
Correct.
It's just water, right? The other thing is Shemayim. Right, heaven there's not lots of heavens. Shemayim is just where God is, right? Mm-hmm. It's the flow where God is, right? So, and then we have Yom, and Yom is Yod Vav Mem. It's falling to the same thing. What does a day do? A day flows. It doesn't have a hard edge on it. It doesn't have weight or edges. So there's this tendency that Yod Mem stuff is kind of a little bit soft edges, less finite. In fact, the plural for yom, the plural for day, is yamim, which is exactly the same word as the plural for seas. Yam is a sea, which is something which flows, which doesn't have a hard edge on it, right? And yamim and yamim, it means the same thing. It's like it means two different things, but it uses the same word. So all of these things are flowy things, right? So this is another principle that's being introduced. Okay, I'm on a tangent. You've got to stop me.
Good. This is good.
Okay.
Crack the whip.
So, yeah. I need a little bit more self-discipline. V'yikra Elohim lo'or yom. God called to light day. Va, and this is an and. I'm going to color it red when it's an and blue when it's a tense flipper. And after a while, you'll think, well, how do you know? You'll get to know that those patterns, and you'll spot it from a mile off. So v le choshek. Now choshek is darkness. Lamed means to, vav means and. So and to darkness, kara laila. Now you see how kara is the same as vayikra. Kof reish aleph. They both mean called. So how is it that one's got a yod and a vav and the other one doesn't? Well, one of them, kara, is the past tense to call. In fact, it's literally he called because it's the pal shorish. This one is the future tense flipped into the past, and this one's just the past. So you can get to the same word from two different roots, which is quite cool. And here they're being sat right next to each other, so you can see that that's true.
Right.
So v'yikra Elohim le'or yom, God called to light day. V'lechoshek, and to darkness, kara, he called Lila. Now guess what Lila means?
Lila. Nighttime.
Absolutely. That's why it's a very popular name. It's a
it is. A lot of people have. I know people named their pets Night.
Right. It's a very kind of, it's a pleasant word to say. It's got kind of mysterious, poetic connotations. There's even a very famous clarinetist, Israeli clarinetist called Yom, and he's a tremendous clarinet player. So that's what we have. We have light and darkness, and just like you say, it's not the day and night as related to the earth, because we haven't got the earth yet.
Right.
We're just off in the floating of space. So, L'choshek kara laila. And then we have this cool thing. Now, you remember our old friend V'yehi, right?
V'yehi.
Now, Yehi is from this set of words to do with the verb to be. So, Haya is was, Hoveh is, and Yiyeh is will be. Yiyeh, you see, Yod, Hey, Yod, Yehi is from the same word as Yehi, is Yiyeh. This is not an and, so I'm going to take it from being red and turn it blue, because this is a tense flipping vav, right? So it means rather than yehi, which is will be, vayihi means it was. Okay? Now, get ready for this. This is quite a cool idea as well. Vayihi erev. Erev means a couple of different things. Evening prayers are called ma'ariv, because they're in the evening, right? But also the sun sets in the Ma'ariv, in the west. So the direction of west is associated with the evening, because the sun goes over there when it's evening. That's when it's it. But Erev can also mean a mixture. Because, it's the half-light. Day is light and night is dark. We have this separate thing. And the Erev is the middle bit. It's
the sunrise and sunset period.
Yeah, it's the kind of half light. It's not. It doesn't. There's not a moment where you go, now it's evening. It's suddenly,
Right.
It's not. It kind of fades to evening and then fades to night, and it's very gradual and unclear. But it says Vayihi erev, and it was evening or mixture. And then it says Vayihi voker, right, which is morning. Boker is morning. The reason it's voker in this case is something clever grammatical stuff about the dagesh, but it's too grammar-y to start on that now. We'll come back to it in the future, right? But voka is morning, right? Vayehi erev vayehi voka. So what we're doing is we're going from the mixture, the ill-defined, towards the clear daylight, right? We're going from half-light and mixture, where light and darkness are all one object, to when they're separated and it's very clear, and day and Boker and morning is light. So we're moving from the unclear to the clear, from the mixture to the defined. That's the whole principle of the Sheshis Yamim Bereshit, the 6 days or the 6 flows, if you like, of creation.
Right.
Okay, so that's another little subtle reference there. V'yehi erev, v'yehi voka, and it was evening, and it was morning. Yom echad. Right. We know what Yom is because we've had that principle introduced, and we couldn't say Yom echad until we had that introduced. What number is echad?
Echad, 1.
Absolutely. So it was evening and it was morning, day 1. So all of this wonderful creation and physical principles and philosophy has all happened. We're on day 1, right?
So
but again,
the listener, I just want them to understand that this is before there was an earth, a sun, a moon, and the stars.
Yeah.
This is Hashem establishing the system that is going to operate during all of creation once it's formed. There's light, there's dark, it's both good. And that when it comes, that mechanism will show as one day, evening and morning. That's one day.
Absolutely.
And so you see all this, we have to say there is so much more mystery here for us to unpack.
Yeah.
So much.
That's even why Jewish days go evening and morning. Like we take all these principles, that's why Shabbat begins in the evening and then it's night and then it's day.
That's why we're saying the only calendar in the world that has time ascribed to it is a Jewish calendar. No calendar has a time like Monday at 10 a.m. I mean, everything has a time. All the high holy days have time structure to it. So
right, absolutely, and that's one of the nice things about, like, the more you study this, the more it kind of shapes your life. The idea of our week is mimicking the 6 days of creation,
absolutely,
and the seventh day of rest. And when God introduces a principle like these two things don't go together, you go, okay, I won't put those two things together. I don't mind. When I was a kid, I don't know if you ever had this when you were trying to connect to God when you were a kid, and you're like, it's all difficult to get your head around. You almost think like, can you tell me the rules? Because life often doesn't look like it's got any rules.
No, you're right. But here's the basic element of all of life right here, that which functions clearly and properly is in day.
Yeah.
Right. That which is shut down and doesn't function well is at night. Yeah. I mean, it's easy.
And you need both. That's the cool thing. Because God said, there was light, and God saw the light and said it was good, and then He separates into light and darkness, which means God hasn't used the word bad yet.
No.
God's only introducing good things. Later on, the word bad emerges. It'll come, but right now, when God's at the wheel, there's no bad. It's all just good,
Right, absolutely. Do you want to tell? Are we going to go into another slide, or do you want to tell what we're going to do next class?
So I can give you a heads up about next class.
Yes, what we do
if that works, okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at day 2.
Right, day 2.
So this is a very interesting thing.